Well, I guess since we talked about social media, there is that question of, is New York becoming a nanny state? And we're seeing that with the 24/7 speed cameras. Of course, we had speed cameras in effect in school zones between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. The idea being that's when children would be around, who were going to school or leaving school. But now there's a new state law that authorized 24/7 speed cameras. And in August, we're going to get them in New York City. So there's an information campaign going on now to educate people on this. Do we think it's a good idea? Is that an overreach? A lot of people complain that in their view, this is just a way to punish drivers.
It's a moneymaker. More money, more money. I mean, at 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody speeding through a school zone. Come on, give me a break. Now, speeding in general, obviously, is wrong, but school zones and other areas, I mean,
that's a great
it shouldn't be 24
right?
hours.
It's a school zone at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It shouldn't be 24 hours, but it's a moneymaker. You know, you're gonna get caught at 2, 3, 4 in the morning.
That's my issue with that, and even some of the ticketing and all that in general, is that I don't think these things should be seen as revenue that the city relies on. Right? They're supposed to be to make sure that, we have an orderly society. They shouldn't be something that you rely on your budget item, because then what it does is it forces the system to try to go after people to make sure they reach a certain money, because we need to fill this budget item. And having 24/7 cameras, it's like, okay, we're just trying to catch everybody. You want to, like you said, it's a money thing. And it's like, that's not a good way to live.
Yeah, it's not good policy.
Yeah.
Well, on the flip side, people will say,
but again, the nanny state's been created, years ago. I mean, everybody's trying to sanitize, society, sanitize New York City. Like we were talking before about the fireworks, now a thing about silent fireworks. I mean, come on. The liquor licenses, you can't get a 4 a.m. liquor license anymore. Back in the day we were growing up, just about all the bars and pubs were open until 4 in the morning. Nowadays, try finding one. Even on a Friday, Saturday, not easy, because they're trying to sanitize society.
It's funny, is the nanny state and sanitized society, like, that's also a phrase and a talking point that's also used on conservative sides. So there is some common ground between everybody that looks at how the country is moving and, not happy with it. And I think we should push.
But there are a lot of people who will say that, first of all, you shouldn't speed. Second of all, with the whole Vision Zero, they looked at the speed rates and they said that if you're going 25 miles an hour, you're much less likely to kill someone if you hit them than if you were going 35 or 40 miles an hour. And so shouldn't we do all we can to prevent people from speeding? And the speed cameras only are supposed to kick in if you go over 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So if you're going over 35 miles an hour, they would say, shouldn't you get a ticket at any time of the day?
But is it only kicking in then, or is it still surveilling people? See, that's another thing I'm not, really happy with it. If it's constant surveillance, maybe the camera takes the picture, the freeze frame, once it goes over 10 miles an hour, but it's constantly surveilling the movement. That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting distinction. So you're more concerned about the camera just being there and watching people than ticketing them for going too fast.
The surveillance, the whole, surveillance of society in that regard should be uncomfortable, I think, to many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. I think that's a good point. And, I think a lot of these things are situational. Sometimes you have to go faster for whatever reason. Should you automatically get a ticket in the mail? What if you're rushing to the hospital? What if you have someone pregnant in the car? What if you have people tailgating you and you have to get past them? Whatever it is. I mean, that's why we had people who were police officers or people who knew what they were doing in theory, looking at this as opposed to leaving it to robots. And there were actually speed cameras in other jurisdictions that were deemed unconstitutional because they were actually given to private companies. And they said the private companies had an incentive to give out more tickets because they made more money that way.
Interesting. Yeah, and again, the traffic in New York City, because of the density of this city, you can never really speed too much. I mean, maybe it's sometimes some places, but it's not like other parts of the states or country where you can speed everywhere anytime because the roads are more open. Not here. You're lucky if you can move over 10 miles an hour. even if you
Yeah,
want
4
to.
a.m. in a
Well-
4 a.m. in a school zone.
There are areas though where it goes from residential, where it's kind of obvious where you should be driving slow, to
Mhm.
more open very quickly. And I would argue those are speed traps where
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't be trying to trap our citizens into, fees and fines and things.
Yep.
Like, I just,
And do you think that some of that is done to punish drivers and frustrate them out of their vehicles? Because I've heard this too, that there is a goal out there in the city to get people to take more mass transit because they're afraid of, obviously pollution coming from cars. But instead of making it more appealing to take mass transit, they're trying to punish people and just make people too frustrated to drive.
Yeah, that makes sense, because there's definitely a movement to do that through a whole variety of things. The bike lanes, now they're gonna put a toll on driving below 96th Street, Manhattan, or coming into Midtown from the outer boroughs, quote unquote. So yeah, there's a movement afoot to do that, to discourage driving.
and I think also, like Adam said, it's a money thing. We put up these cameras, we can catch more people, and it's just automated, and we've got a new source of revenue.
Yep, easy money.
Right. And when it comes to that congestion pricing, I've always had a problem with it because here in my part of Queens, we've always fought the toll on the Cross Bay Bridge. And we said that it wasn't fair to toll drivers, to charge us to drive from Queens to Queens. It was the only intra-borough toll in the whole city. And now to say you have to pay a toll to drive within Manhattan, I don't think that's right. I would rather tax, for example, the East River crossings if you're going to do that. If you have to, put one on the Williamsburg Bridge or the East, the 59th Street Bridge or whatever it is. But to drive within Manhattan or drive from Queens to Queens, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, no, it's a movement afoot. Listen, you uptown Manhattan, you drive below 96th Street, bingo, you will get a surcharge. Come from Queens, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn. This already, by the way, started a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half, couple of years, 3 years, whatever, recently, that when you're in a taxi, whether it be a yellow taxi, an Uber taxi, whatever taxi, you go below 96th Street, bingo, there's a surcharge. It's already there.
That's crazy to me it's the same city.
Like I live on 118th and First, and if anytime I take the Uber to the train on 2nd Avenue and 96th, I make sure to put the address between 97th and 96th. Because I know, and then I'll cross the street myself, because I know if he crosses, bingo, there's a surcharge there.
I got caught with something like that because I used to live in Valley Stream.
Mhm.
And so when I would fly back to New York after going somewhere, I come into JFK, and I would take a taxi from JFK to Valley Stream. So of course, JFK is, part of the city, whereas, Valley Stream is technically Long Island, even though it's right there on the border. And so the charge would change going from the airport. Once it crossed over into Valley Stream, then the pricing would flip into Long Island pricing.
Right.
So yeah, I've seen that happen.
Yeah, that's always been there for yellow cabs. Yep. But now there's more surcharges, more of a moneymaker.
It's
Crazy.
great.
And you can't drive anywhere in Manhattan anymore if you try. It was always difficult, but now they're making it prohibitively difficult and
more difficult.
Yeah.
And just today, they reinstituted the alternate side of the street parking. They had it during the pandemic, but they curtailed it by only having a 1 day a week alternate side of the street parking during the 2-year pandemic. Just today, it began like the 3-4 days, the normal. Right. It's interesting. They said when it was only 1 day a week for the 2 years of the pandemic, there were people that were leaving their car there for 2-3 weeks. If you're going on vacation, you figure $65 a week, it's a good parking fee. Because that's what the ticket costs, $65 if you do not move it during the alternate side. And people leave their cars a couple of weeks and come back with 2 tickets on $30 and be happy with it. They won't do that because now you'll come back in 2 weeks with like 8 tickets. Wow. That started today again. Another moneymaker.
Right. And also people try to tow cars who are there too long. You see that with the community boards and those community groups, people will complain, this car has been parked on my block for 4 weeks. Can we get it towed?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to put the question out there because every week we put a poll question out to the people. So we asked about the speed cameras? I guess that's a good question to put to the audience. So the question for the week is, do you agree that New York City speed cameras should be active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? See what response we get on that one.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are frustrated with this whole idea of the nanny state, but it's you get people who say then that if you're not doing anything wrong, why worry, right?
Oh, there's a lot to worry about in that regard, especially the effect. You talk about biases, you talk about discrimination, you talk about budgets and people wanting to make money. Like, yeah,
even if you don't speak, you don't want people checking on you over your shoulder all the time. Yeah. I mean, look, they already got us on our iPhones. They know our every movement on our iPhones, for real, all the smartphones. I don't think people are happy about that.
No,
it doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. It's just the whole surveillance.
Yeah.
No, it is. And I definitely agree with that. And I share those concerns, but I also wonder how important are all of us? I mean, sometimes we have an inflated sense of ego. It's like, do they really care about what most people are doing speed-wise? Like, they'll give you a ticket, sure, but do they care enough about you to want to look at you and track your every moves?
It's not that there's someone specifically looking at you. It's that the data is there, and anytime that something comes up or they want to, they can go through that. Maybe they're looking for someone else, and they're looking for who's been in this area, and now they're going through your data as well, and now you're caught into something that was about someone else. And it's just like, technically, like, do you think people should be tracked if they're going from their house to their garbage can? Like, that should be on record somewhere, but with the state or the city? Like, I mean,
no, I don't think so. But then the question is, if we could somehow regulate that, hypothetically, if that wasn't protected. Well, but let's just say hypothetically, like, because I'm trying to get, I guess, to the bottom of the concern here. If we could say that your data isn't tracked, it's only going to be used to give people a ticket, would that be something you would support? Or does the concern kick in when it comes to them doing things beyond the ticket?
Well, the concern beyond the ticket, of course, but even just tracked in general, like, are we all suspects of something? Like, should that be how we treat our citizens, society, that we're potential suspects of something? Like, I think it's just not a great way to live, not a great way to view our citizens. It shouldn't have this like adversarial type relationship, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. We shouldn't all be guilty until proven innocent.
All right.
You know what I mean? We should not feel guilty until proven innocent.
Right. That's like kind of like almost like a due process type thing, where if you see the camera, it's almost like you're being accused by that camera, even if you're not.
Right. Yeah, we should be able to walk around freely. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right?